All right, we'll get started. You guys ready over there?
You've had plenty of time to be ready.
62 days to go.
Very many people. What's that?
Isn't it nice? Be quick.
2 days to go.
We'd have gone home.
Sorry. Good.
We have
All right.
the DUI trial.
We're going to get our meeting started tonight, January 11th, 2023. First one of the new year.
I know.
Start every meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise. We get a roll call.
Chair Snow,
Yes, here.
Vice Chair Anderson,
Here.
Commissioner Tippett is excused, Commissioner Leckie,
Present.
Commissioner Erickson is excused, Commissioner Benson,
Here.
Commissioner Kasparian is excused.
Good.
Looks like it.
All right. Everybody have a chance to review the minutes for December 14th?
Yes, sir.
I didn't see anything that needed to be changed. Very good.
Yeah.
I'm glad it's you that do the minutes.
All right.
I make a motion to approve the minutes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes.
We don't need a roll call, do we?
No, not for that.
All right. And our only thing on tonight's busy meeting. Our public hearing tonight is city-initiated request to amend the housing element as part of the general plan to be in compliance with the state of Utah. And
Maggie.
Maggie?
Yes.
Sorry.
Good to.
Sorry, apologize.
It's okay. Thank you for being here tonight. Yes, I'm the only agenda item. We do have to get this back to the state by February 16th.
So it's all about you tonight.
I guess so.
Lucky.
Oh, wow. I don't know what it went. Okay, there we go. So if you can remember, I brought a housing element to you all back in September. And that is sort of an addition to the original housing plan that was passed in 2019. With this housing element, we had to include 6 moderate income housing strategies along with a 5-year implementation plan. And that was adopted in September. So because Midvale City has a fixed guideway public transit station, the housing element that was passed includes a strategy to develop and adopt a station area plan. And we're actually doing that with 3 of our stations. So we got a letter saying that we were in non-compliance because in addition to adopting a station area plan, we also must include strategy, either strategy G, H, or Q in the code, and a 5-year implementation plan for one of those. So those strategies are, so strategy G is amending land use regulations to allow for higher density or new moderate income residential development in commercial or mixed use zones near major transit investment corridors. Strategy H is amend land use regulations to eliminate or reduce parking requirements for residential development where a resident is less likely to rely upon their own vehicle. So this is around major transit investment corridors or senior living facilities. And strategy Q is to create a housing and transit reinvestment zone. And this one is highlighted because this is the one that we are recommending. So a housing and transit reinvestment zone, or SB 140, encourages transit-oriented development through tax increment financing and integral city and agency planning efforts. So it's similar to a RDA or a CDA area, but there are some key differences which I will point out as I go through the presentation. So an HTRZ is a development tool to help address Utah's housing crisis by facilitating mixed-use, multifamily, and affordable housing development within a 4th-mile radius of either light rail and bus rapid transit stations or within a 3rd-mile radius of commuter rail stations or frontrunners. So the core objectives: to promote greater utilization of public transit, increase availability of housing, specifically affordable housing, to conserve water resources, improve air quality, and encourage transformative mixed-use development and investment in transportation and public transit infrastructure. Strategic land use and municipal planning in major transit reinvestment corridors. This is all funny words put together here. Increase access to employment and educational opportunities. Okay, so in Midvale City, we are developing these station area plans around light rails. So highlighted in yellow are all the requirements for an HTRZ zone. So it requires 10% affordable housing on developable acres, and then 51% has to be for residential. 50, either equal to 50 or more dwelling units per acre, and mixed-use development is required. So there also has to be a reasonable percentage of dwelling units that have more than 1 bedroom. And again, the radius from the station is a 4th mile. Maximum acres is 100, and those can be non-contiguous. And then similar to RDA and CDA areas, we can capture up to 80% of tax increment over 15 years, or it could be 15 years through a phase 30-year period. And something else that's unique to HTRZ zone is the sales tax increment capture. So 15% of the sales tax goes towards the Transportation Investment Fund, which is a pot of funding that we can apply for. And that is for new transportation capacity projects. So it can't be to improve anything, it's for new projects. And HTRZs, if you have an HTRZ, you're prioritized for that funding. But because we're beyond the minimum strategies, I think we are only required to have 5 strategies, and with this we'll have 7. That also puts us in a position to be prioritized for this TTIF funding. So other requirements and key provisions are that the light rail HTRZ zones are limited to 8 per county. So we know that South Salt Lake, South Jordan, and Salt Lake City are also planning to move forward with HTRZ zones. So this is the second point, is the most unique part of HTRZ zones, is all taxing entities are required to participate and required to participate equally. Typically with other RDA and CDA areas, we negotiate with those taxing entities to determine if we're going to be 80%, if we're going to capture 80% of the property tax, 60%, or whatever that will be. But this is determined by a committee, which I will talk about in a minute. And again, the taxing entities are required to participate.
What's the time frame to set up the HTRZ
Oh, I don't know.
if Midville does one?
The time frame. Do you know the time frame?
Yeah.
Are we planning on setting up one?
Yeah, we are. I mean, the time frame could be different because there's different criteria that Maggie will go through. You have to have the zoning set correctly, so there's the process of basically rezoning. There's the example she'll show you. Some of it works, but some of it would have to be rezoned. So there's that process that you have to go through. You have to go through and put together what they call a but-for analysis, which is with any tax increment you're going through and you're saying, but for the tax increment coming back into the development, it wouldn't happen. And so that analysis takes from some time because you're going parcel by parcel and you're kind of evaluating a development pro forma and figuring out what the gap analysis is in there and what the but-for statement is. But-for tax increment coming back, this would not pencil out and would lose revenue. So there's that process that you have to go through. And then it goes to the committee, and I'm not sure, I don't think I've seen anything on how long the committee has to decide on that.
I haven't either, no.
There has been one submitted, and they were fairly quick in evaluating that one, so I don't think that that is a big time, but it really is the time period of
Lining up all the ducks.
yeah, figuring out what the vision is, figuring out how the performance work, how the finances work, and then putting the right zoning in place, putting the right financial strategy in place, and then presenting that to the committee. So
Okay.
that could, if you're really good, you could probably make that happen pretty quick, even though you would still have to take things through the planning commission and through the city council, which is obviously going to take time.
Yeah.
But I would say it's probably, on the quicker side, a 6-month process, on the longer side, maybe a year-long process. But that's kind of just being sort of conservative in how long it would take to do that.
Okay. And only 8 cities can apply for or have an HTRZ
Within the county.
within the county. So we have 3 cities right now, and then hopefully we'll be the 4th, and then we don't care who else gets it, as long as we get it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and
Thank you.
another element to that time frame is the station area plans. So those will also inform the HTRZ, which those are happening right now. As Nate mentioned, an independent gap analysis must be conducted to evaluate the minimum public financing for development costs and excludes direct subsidies for developers. And I'll explain a little bit more of that when I go further in the presentation. As Nate mentioned, also all relevant zoning changes must be made before the HTRZ is approved. So going back to the previous slide, all these requirements will require some zoning changes in the HTRC area. And that includes making sure that we allow for mixed use and that 51% of the land is used for multifamily for the average density of 50 units per acre.
So there was a maximum 100 acres. Is there a minimum?
It does not mention a minimum, I don't think.
And now, just to clarify, mixed use means there's commercial and residential. So a percentage commercial, 10%, 1%, 5%, or whatever the thing it says, but
Yeah, I don't think the state specifies that, but it just it could not be used for a strictly residential project.
okay. Okay.
In order to get 50 units per acre, that would pretty much tell you what you could use on mixed use.
The reason I ask is I know that that was a concern with Center Square, is that there was no commercial element to it. And the concern at the time is there was a lot of these mixed-use developments that the commercial side was sitting vacant. They had 15,000 square feet of vacant commercial property that they had to build, but yet was underutilized. And so we adjusted the code to say it can have commercial instead of it had to. And so that was one of the complaints from the city or from the community, is that they wanted that commercial aspect of it. So
In addition to housing.
yeah, the mixed use,
Do either of you have any comments? No? Okay. So a potential Midvale HTRC is we've identified as the Fort Union Station. Like I mentioned, there are 3 station area plans being developed, and this one seems to be the most suitable for an HTRZ. As I mentioned, there's station area plan in progress, which is considering the benefits of the HTRZ for this area. And this allows us to have a financial tool to further develop this area as well. We've already been evaluating this area for future development as a future RDA project area, so the HTRZ seems to be a successful option, especially for the financial aspect of the HTRZ. Additionally, it's a high crime area, and this is a way that we can develop our way out of that. So as you can see, I've listed all the various zones in the area that, again, HTRZ requires that all zoning changes be made before we are accepted. So do you have any questions about any of these zones? Okay, so the use of the tax increment that's generated in the HTRZ includes income-targeted housing costs, structured parking, enhanced development costs, horizontal and vertical construction costs, land purchases, and the administrative costs to create the HTRZ, and the gap analysis, and the cost of bonds. So this is a pretty simplified version of the process that we have to go through with the Governor's Office of Economic Opportunity to apply and qualify for the HTRZ. So first we have to submit our HTRZ proposal to the Governor's Office of Economic Opportunity. They will then coordinate and contract with an independent entity to conduct that gap analysis.
And what's the gap analysis?
Do you want to explain the gap analysis?
Well, that's what I was explaining before. That's that but-for analysis.
Oh, okay.
That's the-
Okay.
Yeah.
If we didn't have this HTRZ, then this would
wouldn't
not
pencil. Yeah, that's basically.
happen.
Yeah, we wouldn't have the financial tools to incentivize the development in the area. So the required entities form the HTRZ committee, and at the bottom I've listed who those members are. So there's someone, a representative from the Governor's Office of Economic Development, UDOT, the Tax Commission, the school district. And then additional members are designated by the county, the school superintendent, public transit, the president of the Senate, and Speaker of the House of Representatives. So they all designate someone to be a part of that committee. So a public hearing is then convened to consider our proposal, and if approved, the HTRZ is established per the terms of the proposal. And again, at that point, the affected local taxing entities are required to participate, according to whatever the terms are that are determined by that committee. And that is the end of the presentation.
So the incentivizing, the density we're going to.
No, that's just a flat requirement.
I like, I just remember the kind of that master plan along 72 and some of the ideas that they had done that kind of mapped out what the potential would be for that area and stuff. And I like that this gives us an added avenue to make some of that happen the way we want it to, rather than it seems like we'd have more control of how that gets developed because we would have a stake in it. And it's not just whatever the person who owns it and has the money can do with it.
Always look left. Anybody else have any questions? Comments, concerns? Legal?
So this is a legislative decision, and so in this case, the city council is asking for your input on what you think is best to help them inform their decision whether or not they adopt this or not.
Well, when I was looking at you had three options. This was the third one. It seems like the other ones we've kind of implemented, or by doing this, we're going to implement some of that higher density. We've already done higher density. We've already reduced our parking in the past and are a little bit reluctant to reduce that too much. But so this seems very logical that the others we've kind of, seems like we've met to a certain degree. And so this seems,
How far away are we from meeting G as a city?
From meeting who?
That was just one of the strategies that we could choose. So we do allow for higher densities in some of our commercial and zones and mixed-use zones, like the regional commercial, the TOD overlay, some of the zone districts around Jordan Bluffs area. So this is just a new tool that the state allows us to use, and we feel it'll be beneficial, especially for that area near the Fort Union Station.
Have we announced that it's that area?
Well, it would need to be near one of the track stations, and that's one that we could choose.
By the
We have
post
3,
office?
but this one would,
Across the street, right?
that would be the one on Center Street. This is the one closer to
I mean
72.
72, sorry.
So we could either do Center Street or 7200 to have an HTRZ.
Yeah, you could.
You can't do both.
You might be able to apply for both, but we feel that this one would give us the most opportunity and most leverage with the state in order to get approved. We
We've
feel
got a
that
lot
this
more
would.
land on
Yeah,
that
this,
side.
this,
Well, there's
this
a
is
lot
more
more-
conducive and ripe for
And more
redevelopment.
commercial
Well, yeah,
and
there's a lot
yeah.
more
So it said
rundown commercial that could be redeveloped into
That'd be
something
nice.
nicer.
maximum 100 acres. Could you split it up and do Center Street and 72?
It can be non-contiguous. Where's Center Street on here?
It's off the map.
I
It's,
couldn't
Oh,
even
okay.
see that.
It can only be a 4th mile radius from the station.
yeah,
So
not-
this,
Well, it's
this
right next to-
circle represents
Center-
that.
Center Street would be right next to the station.
Yeah, this one, again, within that 4th mile radius, we can go above 7,200 and reach a lot of those commercial and industrial properties that right now do not have options for higher density or mixed use, and this would allow that. It's one of the gateways, into Midvale as you get right off I-15.
Yeah, it is.
And so there's
It looks
a
a little
lot of
slummy right
opportunity.
now, so
Yeah, a
it'd
lot
be
of
nice.
opportunity to redevelop that.
Other than the hotel that was presented to us, what other buildings do you think would be interested in this?
I don't know of buildings per se, but it's definitely something that as developers look at properties that are available for purchase and redevelopment, this tool might be advantageous to them as they look at what could be done.
Do you think they'd look at that and think this was prime?
I would
Yeah,
think
that's what I
so,
was wondering.
especially along that 7,200 and north of that, where the red and the purple, the red is the
Right.
regional commercial and the purple is light or clean industrial.
The
Just to clean it up.
HTRZ could also apply to the UTA land, and so UTA owns a lot of land right around
Yeah.
that station that's not utilized at all.
Well, it
So,
looks awful.
yeah, so it would apply to that too. That, you look at that as
Doesn't look very
obviously,
good over there. So there really isn't a downside.
I don't believe so. You'll notice that there is some single-family residential, that greenish zone that kind of
Right.
extends upwards. Another reason this area looks to be conducive to an HTRZ is you look at the commercial area north of 72 and east of the track station. It's not directly adjacent to any single-family residential.
Right.
So you're not, in theory, you're not going to get the public clamor that you might otherwise get if something's going right next to a single-family neighborhood. This is quite removed from that, and,
The closest one would be State Street,
yeah.
which is not gonna be there anyway. They're already tearing down one of the houses.
So at 50 units per acre, do we have anything
The
even
T-
close
the
to
TOD
that?
overlay allows up to 85 units per acre, as does the RC overlay, the regional commercial overlay. That, I believe, can go up to 80 or 85 units an acre as well, which is what we're seeing over in the Fort Union shopping
Right.
area.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Those densities are within that range.
Okay.
We're just making you stand up there just to stand up there and look pretty.
No, it's
We
great.
said it was
Yeah,
all
great.
about you.
Sorry, it's not.
No, this is great. We want to make sure you guys
I would-
feel good about this.
Say I feel good about it as long as we notified public and property owners within the,
Yeah, but
We
you
would,
don't-
we would
yeah.
have to,
yeah.
Yeah, you have
like
to
a
anyway,
a
so.
special meeting to where, because I'm like you, would this increase value?
Yeah.
I mean, to a developer, it would for sure.
Well, it's such a,
Does it stipulate
Poor
anything on
area.
rentals versus sales?
do we have to do
Versus-
that?
I don't believe there's
didn't
anything
mention
in the
anything
state
like that.
code on that.
So they could be all
It's,
rentals?
it just talks about density and percentages of units that are within that affordable range.
Yes, and that's 10%.
Okay.
And this is a dumb question. Do we have an affordable number?
Aren't we
Does the
there?
state have an affordable number?
As far as what they're trying to,
Like, what's
Haven't we
affordable?
maxed out affordable housing in
Is that
Midvale?
200,000? Is that,
oh, you mean a price?
yeah,
A cap?
$1,000 a month? Have we defined affordable?
Yeah, affordable is defined,
For rentals?
for
You said
for
10%
housing.
of this has to be affordable. What,
I think it's at
it's-
80% AMI, so.
Or below that or something.
Or below
Yeah.
80% AMI, so that's what they're looking at. And then I think deeply affordable or something like that is 50% and below.
okay.
So depending on it, that kind of is a moving target depending on where you are.
And if we, it says somewhere in here, if we include, oh wait, never mind.
You lied.
I had that wrong.
Okay.
Yeah, 80% AMI and below is affordable housing.
You made a comment about public hearing and stuff, and this is a public hearing. And this is where we've had things in the past, and I don't know what you do, but I remember Center Square being very involved in that, and people were really upset, but yet the master plan talked about TOD areas and then zoning, and then it was changed, and yet no one bothered to pay attention to any of that in the public hearings or participate in the public hearings until it was being built in their backyard. And then they were all in an uproar, but yet they'd had 15 years to be involved in the process, and they chose not to, or didn't educate themselves enough. And so, we do what we can.
Yeah,
I'd
I
say
like,
this is, we could reach out to some people more than usual.
In this particular area, as Maggie mentioned early on in the presentation, this is one of the areas that we are doing a station area plan for. It's about, we haven't had the kickoff meeting yet. The contract was just signed by the mayor, I believe, a few days ago. We're working with WFRC on this, but you'll be involved in that as well, and we'll give you updates on that.
Yeah.
Because on the hotel, wasn't city council's feedback that they wanted mixed use? They didn't mind the density, but they wanted mixed use.
Yeah. They wanted to see something redeveloped that had an element of mixed use, and what the proposal was that you had also looked at did not have that.
Yeah.
yeah.
So they chose not to rezone the property at that time.
So where is RM 25, the residential multifamily? Where
That's
is
the
that? I
very,
can see
the-
that, but what, give me a location-ish.
so right outside that circle on that
Yeah.
south end, that
For
brown.
like, for like
Right.
address.
Yeah, address.
Oh, address.
More.
Oh, I wouldn't know that address offhand.
7300 South, 2nd West.
I gotta get glasses, you can.
Yeah,
Oh, here we go.
That's what I'd-
California Drive.
that's what I'd
Yeah,
guess.
although I'm trying to,
Yeah,
oh,
that's
Maple
right.
Street, okay.
I know where that church
Sportsman's
is.
Warehouse.
Yes,
Sportsman's Warehouse.
right. Alfaro's, which.
That's an apartment complex,
so-
that
Oh, sorry,
brown.
right.
Yeah, that's what I wondered.
Yeah, that's an apartment complex, I think.
So
Okay.
where was the
The Days Inn and Motel 6.
Yeah, right there.
Right there.
And the HTRZ zone doesn't have to capture exactly within that circle.
Right.
Yeah,
Right,
yeah,
right.
yeah.
I'm just trying to get my bearings
Yeah,
on
if
that.
there's a property within there and part of the property lies outside, as long as that's the same
Right,
property and
right,
contiguous,
right.
it can be used.
Okay. Let's open it up to.
What's, yeah, thanks. Move that we open this up to public hearing.
I move that we close the public hearing.
Roll call.
Chair Snow,
Yes.
Vice Chair Anderson,
Yes.
Commissioner Benson,
Yes.
Commissioner Leckie.
Yes.
The motion passes.
Have a motion.
Do we, anybody else have any comments before we close this out?
Yeah, sorry for all the questions and stuff, but it's just nice to have, just know a little bit more. It just made sense to me and seems like it gave more flexibility to the city to help develop that area. And it makes sense that this would be the first area we'd ever do something like that because it has the most potential, where Center Street just doesn't have that much, and it's being developed, but, you know, so this,
The mandatory mixed use.
yeah, especially on 7200, that makes
Exactly.
a lot of sense, so,
Yeah.
so
You
I,
probably have some businesses, the one you just, that would maybe move into the bottom of something, have resident.
well, and 72 is such a,
Yeah,
you know, busy that you could support a commercial element
oh,
rather
definitely.
than off in some tucked-in corner of the city that no
Right.
one goes by, so.
Yeah, I like it.
Who owns the property where they put the cement mixing batch plant?
UDOT.
UDOT owns that, so that would be a great. Is
Well,
that the land you're referring to?
No.
No, they own more.
UDOT owns right around the station, UDOT owns that. You're talking about where
Used to
the
be
old batch plant was?
Next to Les Schwab where they
Yeah,
put that temporary.
That's a private owner that owns that. So
Oh.
UDOT was leasing it.
Leasing it.
Oh, okay.
But that's a private owner that would definitely be open for development because that batch plant isn't an allowed use, so that would never be able to use.
No, it's gone, isn't it?
Yeah,
I haven't been by there in a
yeah.
while.
Yeah.
Well, I'm willing to make a motion. I move that we recommend amending the housing element in the general plan to include strategy Q and a 5-year implementation plan.
I second it.
It's been moved and seconded. Can we get a roll call?
Chair Snow,
Yes?
Vice Chair Anderson,
Yes,
Commissioner Benson,
Yes.
Commissioner Leckie.
Yes.
The motion passes.
thank you.
All right. It'll go to city council, right?
Yeah, this will go to council.
Upcoming meetings and projects?
So our next planning commission meeting's the 25th, so 2 weeks from today. On that agenda, we will have the large-scale master plan for the Gardner Jordan Bluffs project. If you remember, they came a month or maybe more, just talked about some of the changes that they were incorporating based on your feedback and council feedback. That will come back before us, as will an expanded Mills project over on, I believe it's 80th South, and then a smaller subdivision as well. So we'll have those on the agenda next time.
What's on 80th?
The Mills
East.
project, south. Oh, what
No,
east?
what
Oh, what east?
Yeah.
Oh.
It's the Garnett
Have
project.
they visited us before a few times?
That's where the church,
Yeah.
they're buying that church.
Remember the neighbors didn't want the marking
Yes.
of the mass density?
Yeah, it's all single family. They're on smaller
That's right,
lots,
they did
but
it.
Garbett's been developing that.
Oh, that's good then. Okay.
Yep.
The houses are good looking. I have seen the models. Okay, anybody else? Questions, comments, concerns? No?
So a busy meeting next time.
Could be, yeah.
Yeah.
We sent out a lot of
Informative one.
notices today.
Yeah.
Informative.
Close.
I move that we adjourn at 6:37.